Welcome to Podkey Slopcast, where the AI slowdown might be the most useful phase yet. If the big frontier labs really are slowing flagship releases, that does not automatically mean AI progress has stalled. It may mean the bottleneck has shifted from raw model drops to everything around them: evaluation, workflow design, context management, incentives, and whether organizations can actually use what they already have. The headline claim here is that major releases like GPT 5.6 or Gemini 3.5 Pro look delayed, with release odds dropping below roughly 30%. That is a forecast, not a confirmed roadmap, so it matters to separate observed slowdown from confident prediction about how long it lasts. The proposed explanation is a mix of internal product choices and a coming regulatory wall, and both are plausible. Product choices can delay launches because labs may be prioritizing reliability, packaging, pricing, safety layers, or enterprise features over raw capability theater. Regulation is trickier. A looming policy burden can absolutely slow public release, but it can also become a convenient narrative for delays caused by technical or commercial reasons. Without direct disclosures, we should treat the cause as informed inference, not settled fact. Still, even the weaker version of the claim matters. If the release cadence really softens into late summer or beyond, the practical question changes from which new model wins to whether teams are ready to exploit the ones they already have. That brings us to capability overhang, which is one of the more grounded ideas in this whole bundle. The claim is that older frontier models like GPT 5.5 or Opus 4.8 still have unused headroom because most organizations have not upgraded the skills, processes, or system design needed to get consistent value out of them. That rings true for a simple reason. Model capability and organizational capability do not move at the same speed. A better model can arrive overnight. Better evaluation habits, role redesign, documentation standards, and agent workflows usually do not. The missing context is that overhang is not free value sitting on a shelf. Extracting it means training people differently, changing approval flows, redesigning tasks, and deciding what quality bar actually counts as success. So the optimistic version is not magic productivity waiting to be unlocked. It is a real but labor-intensive opportunity. The most concrete advice in this pause is to build reusable evaluation suites and reusable context assets. An evaluation suite means prompts, expected outputs, and success criteria that reflect your work, not generic leaderboard trivia. That matters because benchmark hype is usually about public tests that often do a poor job predicting whether a model will help with your contracts, support escalations, audits, codebase, or research workflow. If you do not have a baseline, every new model demo feels impressive, and every vendor claim becomes hard to challenge. The context portfolio idea is similarly practical: identity files, role responsibilities, project packs, and other reusable background, so you stop retyping the same setup into every tool. The real trade-off is between completeness and relevance. More context can help, but too much irrelevant context can dilute performance, increase cost, and create version control headaches. That is why splitting context into project-specific packs makes sense. It is less glamorous than model benchmarking, but probably more useful day-to-day. Hosting those assets on an MCP server adds another layer. It is not just about convenience, it familiarizes teams with the infrastructure patterns that more capable agents are likely to depend on later. There is also a push here to stop building one-off prompt bots and start building fuller agent architectures. That sounds ambitious, and it is, but the logic holds up if the goal is autonomous, goal-driven behavior rather than isolated text generation. A single prompt can be enough for narrow tasks. It usually breaks down when work requires memory, tool use, iterative planning, or handoffs between subtasks. The caution is that Agentic has become a marketing magnet. Adding loops and tool calls does not automatically create reliability. That is why the recommendation to define evaluation criteria before deployment is one of the strongest points here. Self-iterating loops can improve outputs, but they can also amplify errors, waste tokens, and create a false sense of autonomy if nobody is measuring whether each iteration actually helps. The two-window workflow, one window for building and one for tutoring, is less profound, but probably highly effective. It lowers the friction of learning by keeping execution and explanation separate. Packaging recurring capabilities into modular skills is the broader play. If one team solves retrieval, cleanup, report formatting, or compliance checking once, that should become a shareable building block, not a private trick. The second-order effect is organizational memory. Skills turn isolated wins into reusable infrastructure. Another smart use of the pause is running the same project across multiple harnesses like Cloud Code, Codex, or other platforms. This is less about finding a universal winner and more about exposing trade-offs in interface design, latency, cost, tool access, and model behavior under the same workload. Teams often confuse model performance with product performance. Sometimes the boost comes from better tooling, better function calling, or better plugin ecosystems, rather than a fundamentally smarter base model. That links to the idea of web apps as a default output format. Static PDFs and spreadsheets still matter, but they cap interactivity. If AI systems can generate HTML or lightweight web apps, the deliverable can become explorable, filterable, and easier to revise. Vendors are clearly nudging users in that direction, which does not make it automatically right for every job, but it does suggest where the product surface is heading. Knowledge workers should at least test whether web-native outputs improve adoption and clarity. Model sovereignty and routing are really procurement questions disguised as technical ones. Open-source models and routing layers can reduce dependence on a single provider, but the reasons need to be explicit. Cost control, privacy, data governance, uptime resilience, or regulatory compliance. If none of those pressures are strong, the complexity of maintaining a more sovereign stack may outweigh the benefit. Where this gets serious is organizational readiness. If training still revolves around quick prompt hacks, the workforce may be learning a version of AI that is already too shallow for the current tool landscape. The proposed fix is systematic. Teach the right material, measure performance before and after, update the curriculum, and reward people for experimentation and reuse. That incentive point is easy to underrate. If employees are judged only on short-term efficiency, they will underinvest in reusable systems, skill packaging, and opportunity-seeking work that may create future products or revenue. The layered measurement philosophy helps here. Adoption tells you who touched the tools. Usage tells you how much and in what ways. Outcomes tell you whether anything valuable happened. Mixing those together is how organizations fool themselves. So the strongest overall case is not that the model pause is good news or bad news, it is that it creates a strategic window. If frontier releases resume soon, the teams that spent this period building benchmarks, context infrastructure, agent loops, reusable skills, and cross-platform knowledge will be in a better position to exploit the next wave. If the pause lasts longer, those same investments still pay off because they raise the floor on current systems. What does not hold up very well is the idea that the answer is to wait passively for the next flagship model. That is the one strategy almost guaranteed to compound dependency while everybody else is building process advantage. That is the real test during a slowdown, whether your bottleneck is the model or everything around it. Thanks for listening to Podkey Slopcast. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.